nave tripulada rusa Soyuz MS-16 llegó a la Estación Espacial Internacional en una misión cuyos preparativos se realizaron en medio de redobladas medidas de seguridad sanitaria debido a la pandemia del coronavirus. Los tripulantes, los rusos Anatoly Ivanishin e Ivan Wagner y el estadounidense Christopher Cassidy fueron sometidos a una rigurosa cuarentena durante más de mes y medio y ni siquiera pudieron despedirse en persona de sus familiares antes de emprender el vuelo. Tras 6 horas y 4 vueltas a la Tierra, la Soyuz MS-16 se acopló a las 14:13 GMT al módulo POIST del segmento ruso de la Plataforma Orbital Internacional cuando volaban sobre el Atlántico Norte. 2 horas más tarde y solo una vez que se comprobó el hermetismo del ensamblaje y se igualaron las presiones, se procedió a la apertura de las escotillas y los recién llegados entraron en la plataforma que será su morada durante los próximos 196 días. La Estación Espacial Internacional, un proyecto de más de 150.000 millones de dólares en el que participan 15 naciones, actualmente está integrada por 15 módulos permanentes y orbita la Tierra a una distancia de 400 kilómetros y una velocidad de más de 27.000 kilómetros por hora.
It is Wednesday, June 3rd, and you are looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 9:25 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Cape Canaveral Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida. Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 8th Starlink mission and our 9th mission this year. To date, we've launched over 420 Starlink satellites to orbit. As a reminder, Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. This latest launch comes on the heels of our historical first launch of humans over the weekend. In case you missed it, we'll give you a quick update on that later in the broadcast. At T-minus 9 minutes, all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this evening. And if for any reason there is a hold on the countdown today, we have a backup launch window opportunity tomorrow at 9:04 p.m. Eastern. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9, our 70-meter two-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle, getting ready for launch from Space Launch Complex 40, or SLC 40. This booster will be flying for the 5th time today. It previously supported the Telstar 18 Vantage mission, Iridium 8, and the first Starlink mission, as well as the 3rd Starlink mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage. You can see the soot markings left over from its last flight. And the first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space with the help of 9 Merlin engines at the base of the rocket. Today, we will be attempting to recover the first stage for the 5th time, which, if we are successful, would be the first 5th landing of a Falcon 9 booster. Today, we are using our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions, which was our very first drone ship, and opposed to our more commonly used drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, since it was currently occupied by our Demo 2 Falcon 9 booster up until last night from this past weekend's exciting historical launch. Just Read the Instructions is currently stationed about 350 nautical miles northeast of the Cape and about 200 nautical miles east of Charleston. Above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will carry the Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit above the Earth's surface. From there, they will use their propulsion system to move up to their operational altitude of 550 kilometers. And Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since T-minus 35 minutes. And as a reminder, we use a rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, as our fuel, and super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer to power Falcon 9. And currently, RP1 and LOX are nearly fully loaded on both stages, and LOX will continue to be topped off right until the last minute of the countdown. The stack of 60 satellites is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you can see on your screen. That's that pointed structure at the very top of the rocket. This protects the satellites from the aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during ascent. But once we reach the vacuum of space, we no longer need them, so we will jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. We will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today using our recovery ships Mystery and Mischief. At approximately T plus 40 minutes, the team will perform a poll to confirm if we're all good to make a catch attempt, and weather plays a factor as well as telemetry of the fairing, its altitude, position, and speed. And we were watching some thick clouds earlier, making sure that we are good for weather, just like we did in last week's launch, Demo 2 launch, constantly checking on the weather. But today, we are currently go for weather at T0. So with that, the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just about 5.5 minutes from now. And as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, we are coming off an amazing weekend with the SpaceX and NASA teams successfully launching the dads, NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, to the International Space Station. Our second demonstration mission, or what we call Demo 2, lifted off from historic Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center on Saturday, May 30th, and 19 hours later docked with the International Space Station. The mission marks the first time a commercially built spacecraft has launched people to the space station and the first time in nearly 10 years that the U.S. has launched astronauts into space from U.S. soil. The video that you see on your screen is Bob and Doug floating around in orbit, giving us a tour of their Dragon spacecraft, which they named Endeavour to commemorate the huge efforts made by the SpaceX team, as well as a nod to the first shuttle that they both flew on. Demo 2 is an end-to-end flight test from launch to docking to splashdown. It is the final major milestone for SpaceX's human spaceflight system to be certified by NASA for operational crew missions to and from the International Space Station. While Bob and Doug certainly had the best seats for the Demo 2 launch, they weren't the only ones to try their hand at docking Dragon to the space station. We recently released the same simulation that the astronauts trained on in advance of the Demo 2 mission. Head over to iss-sim.spacex.com to give it a try yourself. That simulation, the displays in Crew Dragon, and a bunch of other really cool projects were developed by SpaceX software engineers. Software engineers at SpaceX get to work across exciting projects that drive our rockets, spacecraft, satellites, and ground systems. If you're interested in helping roll out Starlink to the world or taking humanity to the moon and Mars, send your resume to softwarejobs@spacex.com. We will also be setting up a Reddit Ask Me Anything, or AMA, with our software team in the next week or so stay tuned to our social media accounts for details on that. Once Demo 2 is complete, the SpaceX and NASA teams have reviewed all the data for certification. NASA astronauts Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, Shannon Walker, and JAXA astronaut Soichi Noguchi have been assigned to fly on Dragon's first 6-month operational mission, which we're calling Crew 1, which is targeted for later this year. We are currently 2.5 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Super chilled liquid oxygen, which, as I mentioned earlier, is our propellant oxidizer, is what's creating those white clouds that you see around Falcon 9 when it's exposed to the warmer ambient air. You can see that on your screen there. First stage should finish prop loading, actually already has finished prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes, and second stage is coming up on finished prop loading at T-minus 2 minutes. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup, and that means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. So with the Starlink payload continuing to be healthy, the F9 teams, Falcon 9 teams are tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking good, and the range is green for launch. So we are at T-minus 1.5 minutes from liftoff. And again, in about 30 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. What this means is that the vehicle will basically be autonomously making its decision if it will continue with liftoff at T0.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there's that call out that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Go for launch.
And at T-minus 45 seconds, there was that call out for go for launch. Again, that was the Falcon 9 rocket making that decision autonomously. Now we are T-minus 30 seconds from liftoff of our Starlink payload tonight. So let's listen in and watch liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7,